And as you probably know, if you watch the program, we named the show The Zero Hour 5 years ago because we're out of time when it comes to protecting our environment, saving our planet. We got to act now. We got to act yesterday. We got to keep acting. And our next guest is part of an organization that has been taking a terrific leadership role on that issue. Marcela Mulholland is a climate organizer with the Sunrise Movement. She's experienced climate change, as many of us have, with sea level rises in her Florida hometown. She is currently a senior studying political science and sustainability studies at the University of Florida, which is from which she joins us now. So Marcela Mulholland, thanks so much for coming on the program.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to share my story with y'all.
Well, and we are too, but before we start, I always Google my guests, and I always try to start on a relaxed note. So this is what I came up with when I Googled Marcela Mulholland. I came up with an article that begins, "The first time Marcela Mulholland gazed into someone's eyes, she laughed so hard she nearly fell out of her chair." I guess this was one of those, like, we'll look into each other's eyes and know one another. Was that supposed to be the exercise or something?
It's something called eye gazing, which essentially consists of like prolonged eye contact with another person without speaking. And the first time I did that was in one of my classes freshman year of college, and it was so uncomfortable that it was just like extremely vulnerable, and I was laughing a lot and in my chair as my partner was like gazing into my eyes. But it actually turned out to be like a pretty profound experience because the person leading the exercise had us do it for long enough to where like you could feel really uncomfortable and really wanted it to end. And then there was like a good like minute and a half still left of the exercise. So I eventually surrendered and actually had a really beautiful experience. And I'm like an eye gazing enthusiast ever since that.
Oh, that's really interesting because I'm always that person who's super, guarded at things like that. And I remember once I went to some seminar where you were supposed to write 3 words that revealed your inner being on a card and put them on your forehead and then walk around not saying anything to people. And I wrote "this space available" because I didn't want to like be part. So, but that actually turned out to be a good exercise too. So we shouldn't be such...
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah, it was. So we shouldn't be such, but at any rate, now let's talk about something even more meaningful potentially than gazing into another person's eyes, which is protecting the planet that all of us human beings with eyes walk on. You guys at the Sunrise Movement have been coming up a lot lately in context of the new Congress and the push for a Green New Deal, which is getting huge coverage now through your advocacy. There was a sit-in, I believe, in the House of Representatives that some of the newly elected representatives came to, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and I think maybe Rashida Tlaib came, I'm not sure. So let's talk about that, Green New Deal. That's a major focus for you guys in your work, right?
Yeah, it is. So Sunrise Movement is a movement of young people organizing to stop climate change and create millions of good-paying jobs in the process. And this organization has existed for a bit over a year, and it was founded by a bunch of 20-something-year-olds who come out of the fossil fuel divestment movement in college. A lot of them do. And they created Sunrise after the 2016 election because they really felt like this issue was not being talked about or taken seriously enough by either political party. So Sunrise Movement, their first big program was something called Sunrise Semester, which happened throughout last summer and the fall, and I was part of it in Florida, and it essentially was over 60 young people were placed in 5 different really politically important states across the country, and we went all in and worked full time to help elect climate champions across the country. And the week after the midterm elections, we all went to DC as to like reconverge and talk about the program, and casually to do a sit-in in Nancy Pelosi's office demanding that she get behind a Green New Deal. And now that Democrats are in control of the House and my generation so decisively turned out in record numbers to help elect this Democratic Congress, we are now showing up to say that our votes are not free, that we also are demanding that Democratic leadership take this issue seriously, because it's really my generation's future that's on the line. And specifically, we back a Green New Deal because it's the only policy that really meets the scale of this crisis. The United Nations IPCC report that was released a few months ago clearly outlined that we really just have 12 years to radically transform and decarbonize our society. And a lot of Democrats pay lip service to being concerned about climate change. But it's really clear that it's one thing to talk about climate change as a crisis, and it's an entirely other thing to actually treat it like one. And a Green New Deal would save the planet and also create millions of good jobs for Americans. And we really see this policy as the only option that meets the scale of the crisis and not only deals with climate change, but also economic inequality, and would really uplift a lot of people in this country.
See, here's the thing about the Green New Deal. A lot of people in Washington, where we are, a lot of political people are saying, you know, it's a big ask, right? You know, that's the terminology. It's a big ask. If anything, it's a modest ask in my mind compared to the scale of the problem we face. It's basically what we need based on my own thoughts and investigation, the guests we've had on and so on, talking about the climate. We need the New Deal of FDR plus the World War effort plus, right? And I mean, this is a planetary struggle. It's a civilizational crisis in the making, and yet we have people, and I'm just wondering your thoughts about this, and yet we have people, whether they're political people, journalists, or just ordinary citizens, it's as if we're in the middle of an alien invasion and everybody's going, well, yeah, you know, the flying saucers are kind of, there's a lot of them, but you know, it's a big job to do something about it. It just drives me crazy. What do you guys, you know, how do you react and strategize? Because you get it, you know, and you've dedicated your energy to fixing it. How do you react to these people who just say, well, you know, our committee structure here on the Hill just doesn't really allow us to put together the kind of initiative you're talking about? How do you respond to that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because a lot of people call us radical for just really demanding like what the science tells us is necessary to avoid climate catastrophe. And I think like young people are in this unique position where we're like less maybe like inhibited by the demands of the status quo. Like Nancy Pelosi is concerned about what are the norms of congressional committees, and we're just like, can we please grow up in a planet that's not like on fire? And when people like say that we're radical for asking for a Green New Deal, I really think that that's the wrong way of looking at things, because continuing the status quo as it is right now actually sets us on a really radical path. The world will be radically different and essentially uninhabitable for thousands of non-human species and millions of human beings if we continue on the path that we are on now. And when it comes to cost and people saying that what we're asking for is just too much, we would have a lot of trouble spending enough money to cost us more than climate change is going to cost us. So the status quo right now may be comfortable for some people, but the path that we're on is unacceptable, and we need to act now in order to avoid that future.
And again, we're talking with Marcela Mulholland of the Sunrise Movement. You know, Marcela, you mentioned the economic impact of this as well. We've had the historian Walter Scheidel on this show talking. He wrote the book called The Great Leveler, pointing out that when economic inequality gets as bad as it is now, in the West. In historical terms, the only thing that's restored things to balance has been catastrophe, war, famine, natural disaster. We want to avoid that, and yet at the same time create a livable future. The fact is, the Second World War, when we talk about comparable mobilizations, the New Deal, all of these things improved the economy, gave people jobs, improved people's well-being, and the Green New Deal would do the same. We've had Stephanie Kelton and Robert Poland on, economists who've studied this in great detail, and others. The fact is, a Green New Deal would help everybody, virtually everybody. It wouldn't help the Koch brothers and a few others. How do we get to a point where you're just considered insane not to support it?
Well, that's the work that Sunrise is doing. And just to touch on what you were speaking about before, for so often we've been sold this narrative of we have to choose between economy or environment, or good jobs and a livable planet. And what Sunrise is really doing, and young people everywhere, is we're essentially calling BS on that false choice, because we know that what is good for the economy would also be good. Like, if we advance a Green New Deal and we actually get serious about stopping climate change, that's going to take a whole lot of work that can be good paying union jobs that would benefit millions of Americans and also put us on the path to actually stop this crisis. So the whole dynamic of economic growth versus solving climate change is something that's pushed down by politicians that I feel like don't really want to do what is necessary to deal with this issue. And I got excited about what I was saying, and I forgot what your question was.
It doesn't matter. You answered it. And the fact is, the politicians talking about, well, we'd love to save planet and civilization, but, we've got, Joe's got his committee and Sherry's got her committee. It's ridiculous. But let's talk about for a moment about the age thing, because you guys are mostly young, you're young, I am other than young. And, some people my age say, well, it's our fault. We ruined the world, meaning people my age, boomers or whatever, ruined the world for you guys. And I have a slightly different take. I'm willing to take responsibility for what we didn't do, but I kind of think we blew it by not overthrowing the broken system economically and politically that, really, I didn't get rich off a lousy climate, but some people did, and we did not lay down in front of the railroad trains in order to prevent them from taking over the political and economic system. That was our bad, I think. But going forward, what are your thoughts about the roles of different generations in this struggle, or is it basically just one struggle and we're all in it together?
I think, baby boomers get a lot of flack, but I think in order to win, this movement needs to have be a coalition of people across all age groups, all races, all class backgrounds. And we emphasize that we're young people in Sunrise because we think that young people have a unique moral argument to make in the climate crisis. And we want to empower the voices of young people on this issue, but we welcome the support and of more elder climate activists who have been in the movement for longer than us, and we admire them and look to them for guidance as well. So I definitely think it's the latter of what you were saying, that this is a movement that really needs all people who are willing to take part in it.
Well, and I also think, I think that's a great answer, and I also think that a lot of times the generation war argument is brought up to distract people from the real struggle, with the real obstacles that have to be, your problem isn't some, 69-year-old ex-hippie in Iowa who stopped marching, right? I mean, that person didn't create the problem. Your problem is the politicians and the billionaires and the other people who are funding, not every billionaire, not every politician, but the ones who are on the wrong side of this issue. And your problem, in my view, is the lack of awareness, broader awareness and consciousness, perhaps because of the media and other things, about just how urgent and profound the problem is. And I'm sorry to, or rant at you like that, but
No, it's fine.
and I do think that because you are younger and you will be dealing with this problem and the worst sequelae of this problem much longer than the rest of us, well, you do have a unique moral argument to make, and I want to make sure that we do everything we can to support you in that argument. So what do the rest of us, whether we have shows like I do or just concerned citizens, what do we do to help you in that struggle?
Well, that's a great question. For one, you can go to sunrisemovement.org and plug into the work that we're doing. We're going to be going on a 15-city Green New Deal tour to help spread the word about this, leading up to the 2019 primaries and 2028 presidential election. We're really trying to make the Green New Deal a central part of any Democratic presidential candidate's platform. So I think older people have wisdom that they can pass on for movement work that they've done. A lot of times, older people are higher up in whatever professional positions that they're in, and I think using that opportunity to spread the word on these issues is important. You can also donate to Sunrise Movement, and we're always sending out calls to action for how people can be involved, and that's open to people across all ages. For example, the week after the sit-in that we did in Nancy Pelosi's office, we had a Green New Deal Day of Action where we visited over 300 congressional offices across the country, demanding that Congress people get behind the Green New Deal, and we actually got 45 total Congress people officially supporting Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's resolution for a select committee on the Green New Deal. And for that great day of action, there were young people and there were older people, and everyone is invited. We all have a voice in this democracy. So yeah, I would encourage older folks to follow our lead and to show up in ways that feel authentic and inspiring for you.
And just to be clear, by the way, it's a great answer. Just to be clear, a lot of our listeners are young people, so
okay.
I just randomly happen to be old, but that's okay.
No worries.
Yeah, it does. You stick around long enough, surprisingly enough. So it's been great talking to you. Thanks for all the great work you do. Again, we've been talking with Marcela Mulholland with the Sunrise Movement. So thanks for the great work you individually and the group collectively does. And thanks for coming on the program.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.